You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I hope wherever you are in the world and whatever you might be doing, you are doing very well. The guest on this show is Wanda Ortiz, and she is the bass player in the all-female, the Iron Maidens. That is, the all-female Iron Maiden tribute. They are touring Australia through the end of May and also June. I'll read out some dates. Wednesday the 30th of May, they are playing Brisbane at the Zoo. Thursday the 31st of May, they are playing Sydney at the Manning Bar. Friday the 1st of June, they are playing Melbourne at the Corner Hotel. Saturday the 2nd of June, they are playing Adelaide at Fowlers Live. And finally, Sunday the 3rd of June, they are playing Perth at Badlands. Let's hear what Wanda has to say. Here we go. Hey Wanda, it's Andrew Mackay-Smith calling. How you going?
Great, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm talking to you at a truck stop at the moment on the side of the road on the Bruce Highway, somewhere between Bundaberg and Gympie. Which is close to the Sunshine Coast here in Australia. So I'm driving back from Mackay, actually. So I had a chat to Robin McCauley, who's Michael Schenker's singer, just before yourself. So it's been a good day for it, I can tell you.
Oh, great.
You know, so you're coming to Australia soon.
Yes, in May. We can't wait.
And I've got before we get into talking about the Australian shows, where did you get the inspiration from to play some of the most hard to play bass lines by any band in any genre? Now, I can say that with some authority because I too am a bass player.
Uh-oh. Well, back when the band first formed, I think, everybody was pretty serious about their instruments. I was a bass major in college. I got my performance major I was a performance major. I got my Bachelor of Music in the double bass, but I also played bass guitar. As a bass player, of course, you're going to be drawn to music with more challenging, interesting, fun bass lines. So, of course, I've always been an Iron Maiden fan, since I was very young. So when the band first formed, everybody wanted to do something different, something more challenging. At the time, I think there might have been like 5 all-female tributes to AC/DC. So we're like, okay, we got to do something else.
Yeah.
And since we all wanted something more challenging, something different, something unique that nobody else was really doing, we thought Iron Maiden would be a good fit. We are all, coincidentally, huge Iron Maiden fans, so that made it better. So there you go.
Usually helps, doesn't it? Look, I'm somebody who's played in covers bands for a long time. So I've only ever had the opportunity to play one Iron Maiden song, which I think was Number of the Beast, which is not a bad bass line, but I've seen you play some far more technical bass lines than the one that's on Number of the Beast from Steve. But having had to play some of Cliff Williams' bass lines, which, with all due respect to the great man and also the great band, they're fairly pedestrian, aren't they? So it's pretty exciting that you actually get to play the bass in a manner that's front and centre in a covers band.
Oh, of course, yeah. Any bass player would enjoy that, very much. So I'm having fun with it, that's for sure.
Cool. What's the most challenging aspect of playing his songs? Is it actually learning them, or have you actually got I read somewhere, now correct me if I'm wrong, and you're the one to talk to about this actually, he's a right-hand bass player, I mean his picking hand is in the right hand. Does he use 3 fingers or 2 fingers, and how have you adopted his approach?
He uses 2 fingers.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Used 3 fingers, but I used 3 before I found out that he used only 2. So, for me, I think it's easier to use 3. But each to their own. Sometimes I'll just try it with 2 just to see if I could do it. But once you get used to doing something a certain way for so long, it's hard to switch it over unless you're thinking about it. But then you don't want to think about things too much during a show, because then too much thought, you kind of screw yourself up a little bit.
Definitely. So yeah. I think Alex Webster from Cannibal Corpse said it best. He said you should be so well rehearsed and so you should already know what's going to happen well before the event, that all you're thinking about when you're on stage is what pizza you're going to be ordering after the gig's finished. I totally agree with that statement.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that too. That's the number one thing. If you're well rehearsed and you're prepared and you know the songs, you don't really have very much to worry about.
You play G&L basses. So I think I read you play an SB2 and a JB2. So I'm not really familiar with G&L other than the company that Leo started after he left to Music Man. So was there an option for you to play the mirror pickguard B bass that Steve is famous for playing, or is G&L just suit your style more specifically?
Well, actually, I had already been playing G&Ls before I was ever endorsed with them. I was looking, oddly enough, when I was going to school, when I was a grad student, that was when I heard of G&L. Their CFO was my accounting professor, and he, of course, told the class about his company. And coincidentally, at that time, I was looking for a new bass. And at first, I thought, well, maybe I'll just have Fender make me one, because I was thinking I might go with a shorter scale. But their custom shop wait, I got a 2-year lead time quote from their custom shop, so that was a little bit discouraging. G&L offered only 6 weeks, and you can get a custom-made instrument here in the United States with a 6-week lead time, and I thought their customer service was really great. The instruments were really great. I mean, it's Leo Fender. In addition, was to improve upon his own design. So, of course, they're going to have some great instruments. The G stands for George Bulletin. The girls, when I joined the tribute band, of course, there was some talk about like, well, do you want to try a Fender? But Fender wasn't really very, interested at the time in doing, tribute acts, because it's just a tribute band. Like these big companies, they don't want to, they don't want to do tribute bands, because otherwise everybody'd be calling them. And anyway, it was understandable, but I was okay with it because I really liked the G&L, and of course, G&L didn't mind. They're more of a grassroots company. G&L is.
Okay. Yep.
And they're for the little guy, and anyway, it's a great instrument. Have you ever tried one before?
I did years ago, actually. Before I got into Music Man, I had a Warwick. Now, to be honest, I didn't like it. It was a Corvette FNA. The centre of gravity of it was not where it should have been for a bass player like me. I'm more of a disco and funk bass player. And it kept on wanting to go at a 90-degree angle to my body, so I thought, bugger this, I'll sell it. And then I was sort of left with it. I loved the way it sounded, by the way, it just didn't sit right. So I thought, let's go on a bit of an excursion and play some different bass guitars in some of the shops that are around town. So I played a Sadowski, a Lackland, a G&L and a Music Man. And after much the sort of internal an internal narrative that said, I play slap bass effectively quite a bit, and I thought, do I really want to go down that flea pathway? Do I want to try something more, when I say original, it's bloody hard to do that, but do I want to just pick up where you left off? Because I was literally playing Gallien-Kruger amplification at the time. I still do. I've got his setup from 1994. Well, there you go. Yeah. So I played Flea's setup, not exactly, but the 1001 RB, and I've got the cabs, the neodymium cabs as well. And I've got a Music Man bass. So I played Music Man Stingray 4 and 5 and a Sterling 4 and 5. But I really liked the G&L. I really did. I just felt that I was more, is the word dexterous? I felt that I could do more on the Music Man for my style of playing. But I think, to your point about G&L, I had heard that they were a very easy company to do business with. I think Chris Ioannou, who was the Silverchair in an Australian band called Silverchair. Sorry, the bass player in a band called Silverchair. You've probably heard of them before. He played them, and I know the guys at the bass player in Parramatta Road there in Sydney. That's no longer, that shop is no longer, but they were big fans of G&L. So they've definitely got their fans, and I tend to find people who get into G&L really love the brand, kind of like expressing sentiments like you've just done.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have my G&L there. I mean, you're welcome to try it out at the show, and just see. It's I'm bringing a standard bass. It's got a narrow neck. It's like a sleeker version of Leo Fender's earlier designs. I don't know. I think you'll like it. Anyway, you're free to check it out.
Oh, you're very kind, Wanda, for offering that. Yeah, gosh, I'll definitely be at the show. Gosh, it's I've got to say, I love the concept behind the show. Now, with the greatest of respect to Iron Maiden themselves, it's so refreshing to see you guys doing it. And the reason I say that is because I grew up with Iron Maiden. I've watched the videos. They're the only band still
flag that I've got hanging up in my house is an Iron Maiden one. It's actually the Fear of the Dark live one with Steve as Eddie playing his P-bass with his foot up on the monitor. So I've gotten so
right on.
I've got so into Iron Maiden over the years that I hate to say it, I'm almost sick of it. But when I heard your wonderful interpretations and your bass lines, and when I heard the rest of the ladies in the band doing what they do, it kind of reinvigorated my interest again. So is that...
Oh, well, we hope so. We kind of look at ourselves. we have fun with it. It's kind of like we're the cheerleaders, sort of. You know, like we did a tour of Europe before they did their tour of Europe, and, you know, we kind of look at it like, you know, warming up the crowd a little bit for them. We have fun.
This is a loaded statement when I say this, okay? There are some mid-period Iron Maiden songs from Somewhere in Time in particular that I actually think, and God help me for saying this, but please bear with me, I think you guys do a better job than the actual band themselves. So...
Oh, boy, yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't say it if I didn't feel it was the case. You know, and I'll say the song is Wasted Years. I think the version that you guys do actually sounds closer to the recorded version than the version that the 3-guitar version of the band playing at the moment. I think that's part of the problem with Iron Maiden these days, is that there's almost too many strings on stage. So it's a bit of an onslaught, and it's a bit of a slower and lumbering beast, whereas the 80s material was quite nimble. You know, I love the Taurus bass pedals and the synths that were going on through that album. Metal is only one of the genres that I listen to, so I've got very open mind about things, and I know a lot of traditional Maiden fans consider Somewhere in Time one of the weaker albums, which is just weird as far as I'm concerned. But I think the songs you're doing off that album and also Seventh Son are possibly, well, let me say this, possibly better than the original band can do it in 2018. There you go.
Oh, well, I don't know about that. I haven't heard the original those songs for quite some time. But thank you for the compliment. We do our best to put on the best show we can. We don't want to disappoint people, that's for sure. And
yeah, well, no,
we're really looking for Australia.
Yeah. So have you had a lot of interest from us down here to come down?
No, no, not that we're aware. We've been wanting to go. There's been a lot of interest on our end because, you know, when someone's asked, "Oh, what's your fantasy place where you'd like to go play?" You know, of course, you know, we picked the most fantastical faraway place we could think of. It's just we'd love to go to Australia, see the Great Barrier Reef. We've always wanted to go there, but we've never been invited before. So this is our first time. You know, it's happening, and we're thrilled. We hope we get invited back. So, you know, we want to do the best shows. Well, we always want to do the best shows that we can, but, you know, particularly in Australia and New Zealand, we're looking forward to meeting all the people there. Just checking out the country. We're hoping we'd like to check out the country a little bit. So maybe we might stay later a couple days. We don't know yet. We're seeing how it goes. The tour schedule looks a little bit busy, so I don't know how much time we're going to have for excursions. But
yeah, I think I noticed that it was a fairly, when I say typical Australian tour, you were hitting all of the capitals. And look, as an Australian, I can say who lives in regional Australia, the capitals aren't necessarily reflective of what Australia is all about. Look, I've just come from, you mentioned the Great Barrier Reef. I'm here now. I'm just about 100 kilometres south of it. I just had my toes in the water yesterday in the reef's waters. If you can somehow wrangle a promoter to get you ladies up there, please do it. You know, it's a very unique part of the world. It's got a very spiritual energy about it. Particularly as musicians, I find that we are sensitive souls, so we do pick up on these things. It's just a very peaceful environment, and I think you'd really adore it up there. Oh,
we know we would. We're so looking forward to it. We're hoping we get to do stuff, but I mean, it's kind of hard to ask the promoter, "Hey, can you take us some?" You know, because of course, you know, I mean, they're not there to entertain us, but a couple of us have a couple friends that live in Australia, so I'm already talking to one friend, like, okay, how hard is it to rent a van there? So we're getting ideas.
Oh, fantastic! All right, okay. Well, your thinking's pretty far advanced then. Well, we'd love to have you here. You know, I mean, gosh, I'm sure you'd find a number of people willing to sponsor you.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we're just glad we got invited to play. Like I said, we have a couple friends. We hope we come back. So it's our first time we've been invited. So I don't know. I mean, we have a new booking agency, and before we got this booking agency, like as far as I knew, we never heard from anybody in Australia ever. So
okay.
we're really thrilled.
Yeah, who's the booking agent that's brought you guys down this time around?
Big Time Entertainment.
Big Time. Yeah, there's a lot going. There's a lot of agencies around. Yeah, I've heard of them. That's for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So okay.
Yeah, no, those guys are really great.
So
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, well, I'm glad they reached out to you to bring you down. That's for sure. I think the fans will be as well. I mean, we see Iron Maiden down here fairly regularly. Certainly in the last 10 or 15 years or so, we've seen them on just about every. I think we've seen them on every major tour or so. But I think it's a fairly daunting. They're a fairly daunting band to approach covering the material. You really got to know what you're doing, and of course, you're a fantastic bass player, so you can. So. But I actually don't think we've got a domestic Iron Maiden cover band. I could be wrong about that one, but we certainly don't have one that's as active as what you guys are. So, yeah, come down and play as often as you want, as often as a promoter offers to gives you guys the opportunity to come down.
Yeah.
So do you get, just on that, Iron Maiden being such an iconic band, do you get many, I call them punishers because I get them at my gigs, occasionally. With not so much with me being the bass player, with all due respect, some people just sort of think the bass players up there just doing their thing, and they're more focused on the guitarist or the singer's performance. But do you get many, I call them punishers, coming up to you and saying, "Oh, you didn't play that right. You should have played it like this"?
No, not too much. Every once in a while, like there'll be a bass player in the audience. There's a couple songs, like I said, that I've gotten used to playing it a certain way, or maybe a different position with the same notes, but it's not the same position Steve plays it in. So sometimes I'll get that, or sometimes I'll get like, "Well, Steve uses two fingers." Well, okay.
Yes.
So, sometimes I'll hear that. Very rarely, though. Very rarely.
That's good. Yeah. No, I'm glad that people have the good sense to just appreciate the wonderful talent you've got for playing the bass and interpreting Steve's material. I often say that, you know how I approach playing covers, and I know it's different for your good self, but I approach it as if I wrote the bass line, what it would have sounded like. Because it's being a bass player and the sort of music that I play in covers bands, I look at it as my responsibility, if you like, to keep people dancing, making sure that I'm linking with the bass drum okay and got that time in between the tom and the bass drum. So I play a lot of octaves, a bit like Bernard Edwards in the band Chic. I do a lot of stuff a bit like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I do that. And also, too, the big one is just trying to make it interesting for yourself to get through a 5-hour gig. If you're playing a lot of the root notes like a lot of the bass players do, dear God, it can make for a very, very boring night. I'm not a drinker either, so I've got nothing to fall back onto.
No, me neither. Like occasionally maybe I might have a beer, but I seldom drink anything. So, yeah, if you don't drink and... yeah, it could be a long evening for sure.
Yeah. Well,
but yeah, we'd like to see your band play too. So maybe we'll get a chance to see you guys, or
Oh yeah, I've just joined a new one. Actually, I stepped out of one and joined a new one. Just the drummer, to be honest with you, in the last one, lovely guy, but just wasn't quite there. Especially when you're playing a lot of slap bass and octaves, it wasn't. I found it too hard to do what I was doing and still sort of keep in with what he was doing. He's more of a rockabilly drummer, so very forward of the floor, straight ahead. And if there's no salt and pepper in the drumming, it's very hard for me to do what it is that I do. So I just found myself actually getting a headache toward the end of each night trying to fit in with what he was playing, because it's just too forward of the floor. We call it Oz rock drumming here in Australia. There's a lot of bands through the 80s and 90s that played a certain type of... Have you heard of a band called the Divinals?
The Divinals. It sounds a little bit familiar. I'm not too well versed in what they do. I mean,
trying to think of a band that plays Oz rock that might have, like Cold Chisel. Heard of them?
A band that plays what type of rock?
Oh, it's called Oz Rock. It's rock and roll, but it's kind of like pub rock music, pub music. I'm trying to think of an American band that might be the equivalent. Husker Du, something like that. Husker Du.
No, not too familiar with it.
Oh, it's fairly basic. Just
I mean,
imagine.
it's like
You're right. You go.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you were still going.
Oh, you're right. I was trying to think of an American equivalent to it. A Goo Goo Dolls. Something like that. Not that I've got anything against the bands, of course, but if you if you want to play bass lines like what you're capable of playing, or what I try to play myself, and you're in a band like the Goo Goo Dolls, you're not going to have fun for very long.
No, actually, I'm pretty selective. Like, I get approached for like, oh, you want to do this side project, or you want to do that, and now I'm kind of like I'm pretty selective. It's just like, unless I think it's going to be fun, I'm not really all that interested. I mean, if it's a paying gig and if it's a one-off or something, then that's all right. But if it's something that's going to be fairly regularly, I think it's important to have fun with it, and important that it's something that you enjoy, for sure. So, I don't know. I hear you.
Yeah.
What's your new band?
Velvet Kiss is the name of the band, and got our first gig, I think, on the 10th of February. I think that's the first time I'm going to be playing with them. So I've gone from a band called Vinyl Frenzy, notice the VF acronym, into Velvet Kiss, or VF. I keep getting the two bands confused because I've gone from Vinyl Frenzy into Velvet Kiss. So I hope when I'm on stage I don't refer to Velvet Kiss as Vinyl Frenzy.
Because it's got the V there.
The V there.
Congratulations on that, and good.
No, thank you. Yeah, no, thanks very much. Yeah, no, it's look, I try to do what it is that I do. Apart from doing some of this indie journalism and the rest of it, I stopped my career as a telecommunications account executive in June or July of last year, just to see if I could make a bit of a go at it, being a working musician. And look, so far so good with it. I mean, I wish I had more work, but we're just not a big enough economy here in Australia either to support playing every weekend, unfortunately. DJs are a very big thing over here. That's the other problem.
I've got a day job too, actually it's like three of us do. So I have a second career in technology. So, and when I travel, I take my laptop with me. Most of it's, if you're in technology, most of the time you can just do your work with a cell phone and, a computer, and you're going to be all right. So yeah, we're on the same page.
Yeah, no, I hear from one basis to another. It's a lot like that. But look, I might be going over time here. Have you got somebody calling you after me, or am I the last one?
No, you're the last one.
Okay,
it's all good.
Okay. Yeah, look, I've played a little bit of guitar myself, but I've never felt any other affinity with an instrument the way that I do with the bass guitar. And that's, I wouldn't say that it's made it a harder road. It's just that I've tried working in duos as a guitarist and doing even some solo work on the guitar and the like, but I just simply don't enjoy it. So the bass guitar's for me. And you've got to stand within your own truth on these things, haven't you?
I think so. Yeah. I'm also a bass player too. Just that's my main thing. I've diddled around on other instruments like the clarinet.
Likewise, that's funny you mention that. That's what I did, as well. Yeah, I did it as a kid, and I can still play a little bit of it.
You play clarinet? Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was an interesting perspective, but the bass, you can play bass in almost every style of music, so it's such a versatile instrument. Unfortunately, it's not really the case with you can't really have heavy metal clarinet. But basses are in orchestras and top 40 bands and jazz bands, and almost everything has a bass. So I think just being a bass player, I think that gives you a lot more options than others who play other instruments.
Yeah. I've tried even.
A good choice.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something that I tried not that long ago. I had a funk duo. So there was a singer who played the acoustic guitar, and I also do a bit of singing, and I was playing the bass, but we were interpreting funk songs in a duo format. And we went okay in some venues. Like, I think we could play competently enough. We went okay in some venues, but in Australia, I've already referenced the rock and roll thing. Rock and roll's so prevalent here that as soon as you step outside of that and start playing funk, jazz, or disco to what we call a pub audience, or what do they call public bars in the US? They're just called pubs as well, aren't they? Because I've been to the US a few times. I should know this.
Oh, public bars. Oh, bars, yeah. Well, we don't really call them pubs. I mean, sometimes just bars, bar bands, top 40 bands play there. There's a lot of restaurants, like a lot of the jazz combos. Usually the upscale restaurants, you'll have like a jazz combo in there. I see people who do jazz do pretty well, and of course, if you're top 40. Well, I don't know. I think you could do well here in funk too. I just went to the NAMM show, and you've heard of Bootsy Collins, right?
Of course, yeah.
He had there was this one booth I went to. He had a funk off where there was like 30 or 50 bass players. Anyway, it was a lot of bass players, and then everybody had to get up there on the same bass and get funky for 10 seconds, and then everybody would vote who they liked best. So,
Holy moly.
That was a lot of fun watching that. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I didn't see that. I wonder if that's on YouTube, because I do follow what goes on at NAMM, actually, on the various pages that are on Facebook and YouTube, but I didn't see that one, so that's cool.
Yeah, maybe do a search like Bootsy Collins Funk Off. It was at NAMM. I forgot the name of the company hosting the event, but it was really cute. Everybody'd go up there. He'd be like, okay, Funketeers. Like the contestants were all Funketeers. Like his little play on Mouseketeers. It was really cool. You would have liked it.
No, that's cool. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Yeah, I got a Bootsy Collins album when I was a kid. It was Chic, Bernard Edwards and Chic and Larry Graham that really got me into playing bass in a big way. When I was a young fella, it was actually Billy Gould from Faith No More that I recognised on the song Epic. That he was playing slap bass, and I thought, I don't know what happened. I just picked up a bass guitar that was like, I went through a boarding school. I picked up a bass guitar that was in the boarding house, and I could do it just instantly. It was like a talent that I had to just play slap bass straight away. And I thought, wow, I'm going to keep going with this instrument. This sounds fantastic. And then I started listening to Steph Harris, obviously, and John Deacon from Queen as well, and really started focusing on what those guys were doing. That was my journey. So who was the bass guitarist that inspired you early on?
Well, actually, I started on the upright bass. I didn't get into bass guitar until I was like maybe 11 or 12 or so, because the school had a jazz band and they needed a bass player. But I used to get bummed out because other instruments would have the melody and the fun parts, and I'd just have the bread and butter notes. But one of my friends turned me on to Iron Maiden and Rush, and they're like, well, listen to these bass players. So, of course, that was it for me. I'm like, I think I'm going to keep playing this then. Jago Pastorius, of course.
Oh, God, yes. Yeah.
Weather Report. Yeah. That guy's amazing. I don't do much jazz anymore because, I do orchestral stuff, and between the girls and the orchestra, it's hard to find time to do everything that you could do on bass. So I haven't played jazz really much since high school. Every once in a while I'll double in the orchestra, and there'll be kind of a jazz part, so I get a little taste here and there. But
nice. Yeah.
I've got rounds on the blue bass right now. Maybe you could play some funk on there. I can kind of do that a little bit, but it's not really. I don't think I'm really super great at that, Just,
we've each got our own lane.
One thing,
Yeah, I mean, I like the expression we've each got our own lane with these sort of things. I mean, but look, I've got to hand it to you. I mean, I've watched a few of your videos on YouTube. I mean, you're one of the best rock bass players I've ever seen. So you'd probably be, in terms of rock bass playing, I don't think you could get a better example, If anybody, actually, I should mention this now, if that's okay. I'll edit this bit out. But I do host a podcast series. This is a wonderful discussion. Are you okay if I air this as part of my podcast series?
I'm sorry? I didn't hear you really well there. Sorry about that.
No, you're right. I host a podcast series. Are you okay if I air our discussion as part of the podcast series? I just think we're talking about a lot of really cool things that a lot of musicians in particular don't get an opportunity to hear some bass guitarists talking about stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, that's true. We're kind of like, usually bass players aren't as upfront as, other instrumentalists. But, of course, if you're the type of person that likes and wants a lot of attention, you're probably not going to be a bass player anyway. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm glad to see bass players and drummers, drummers as well, get attention. So.
Yeah, drummers can. I think drummers, because they're so bloody loud, they often get their own piece regardless. I think a lot of the average rock or the music fan could probably name, the Cozy Powells, the John Bonhams of the world. But you ask them to name a notable bass player. There's only one that comes up consistently, and with all due respect to the great man, I don't think he was specifically a bass player, and that's Paul McCartney.
I like Paul McCartney. You know what? His stuff, his bass lines, they're perfect for those songs. You don't really, he's Paul McCartney, so you think of him mostly like as a songwriter, one of the songwriters in the Beatles, but yeah, his bass lines, he's got some great bass lines. They go in there perfectly. I think he's, obviously he's a big part of the reason, the Beatles became, as big as they were. His bass playing, definitely, it was a big contribution to their music being successful. I think he's great.
Yeah, look, I just...
But yeah, you're right. People don't... Oh, Tom McCartney,
Yeah, it's...
more like, Biddy Lee, Chris Squire,
Yeah. Chris Squire, well, he's a bloody good bass player. Jetty Lee, you mentioned him before. I mean, his bass lines are almost... The thing about him that I find impossible is that he sings the way he sings, and he plays bass the way he plays bass. Now, they're totally... I mean, the rudiments of what he's singing and playing go against each other. He is such an intelligent guy.
Oh, he's amazing, for sure. Yeah. I can't imagine just singing. And then sometimes he plays keyboards and bass pedals, and the guy just does it all. It's really amazing.
Yeah, and look, just on the point about Paul McCartney, I just saw him a couple of weeks ago. He played Brisbane. And, my God, does he have a lot of energy. I mean, I think he's 70-something. Like a lot of people, I just wanted to say that I'd seen a Beatle live and in the flesh, so I can say I've done that now. And I can't say I'm a massive fan of his music, but my God, where does he get his energy from? The fountain of youth?
I know. I haven't seen him yet. I would like to. I would like to see him play one time in concert. If I'm in town and he's in town at the same time, I'd totally buy a ticket. It's on my bucket list. He's a great bass player for sure.
Yeah. I play a couple of his songs in the previous band, Vinyl Frenzy. I was playing Saw Her Standing There. Have you ever played that song there, the bass line on that one there? How'd it go at that?
No, I haven't really played much bass lines for any of the Beatles songs, quite honestly, but I've heard them a lot. I know they're good.
It's I tell you something, it reminded me a lot. I actually, after the first time I performed it, I turned around to the drummer and I said, I feel like Steve Harris playing this one. It just keeps on going. It's just non-stop, and I ended up, on part of it, having to do a bit of improvisation because I lost my way. I wouldn't say it's repetitive, but he's playing the same thing over and over again, but it's a very busy bass line, and I tend to work better when I'm playing different notes in different sequences as opposed to the same thing over and over again. But the stamina that he has to play that bloody song, I didn't have it, to be frank. I had to start putting extra notes in there and going on little runs here and there just to sort of keep myself on top of it. So he's definitely a gifted bassist, there's no doubt about that. Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. And, yeah, just like anything, kind of like running a marathon or whatever, or just getting used to it. I think just playing bass, just having that type of stamina that he had to do that, I think people, you need to build up to it. It's kind of like people run 5 miles a day or something. There's some people that run a couple miles and you're like, oh gosh, how do you do that? Well, they just get used to doing it. It's probably what happened with Paul McCartney, just so used to doing it. Yeah.
Just effortless. Guy's great. So.
See, and you mentioned earlier, so we both played Galley and Kruger. How did you arrive at Galley and Kruger? Was that trial and error, a bit like myself? I used to play. Oh God, I'll mention the brand because God, you got to do these things. Fender. I used to play Sun actually, which is made by Fender, and it blew up on me on stage. This bloody 1200S that I had from them, and I thought I need something more reliable than that because I do a lot of gigging. And I just can't have things blow up on stage because, for starters, they cost too much and it takes too long to get them repaired. And that's how I ended up with Galley and Kruger. But how did you end up with the brand yourself?
I ended up with Galley and Kruger because I got called on to double in the orchestra, sometimes on a bass guitar, and I needed something versatile. versatile enough to do, in addition to rock, to do orchestral stuff or to do musicals. And, Galen Krieger, I would feel weird showing up to an orchestra gig with a big Ampeg. It just so to stay out of place. There's just so much respect for this. Like, you have a Galen Krieger, like, ooh, you're really serious,
Yes, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, like that's the stuff. And they have, I saw them at NAMM. They have this great new little gadget, the Plex preamp, which it doesn't matter what backline you have. You can use this preamp and you can still get your sound. So I'm looking at getting one of those. Looking forward to that.
You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and that was my conversation with Wanda Ortiz, the bass player in the all-female, the Iron Maidens. That is the globe's premier Iron Maiden cover band. Thank you so much for listening.